Okay, let's talk about something that sounds, well, completely backward. Have you ever thought about why the most severe, most life-threatening burn might not hurt at all? I know, it makes no sense. But the reason why is rooted in some really fascinating biology. So, let's dive right in.
So, right off the bat, here's the central puzzle we're tackling. It just flies in the face of everything we think we know, right? I mean, our instinct tells us more damage equals more pain. Simple. But with burns, it's not that simple. In fact, the most catastrophic injury can be, strangely, silent. The big question is why.
All right, to solve this whole paradox, we've got to take a step back and ask a really basic question. What even is pain? Because it turns out it's not nearly as simple as you might think.
You know, we usually think of pain as this vague, emotional thing that happens to us, to ourself. But if you look at it physically, on a biological level, it's actually a super specific data transmission system. Think of it like a high-tech alarm network that's wired all throughout your body.
And the sensors in that network? Well, they have a name. They're called nociceptors. The best way to picture them is as millions of tiny, microscopic tripwires packed into your skin. And whenever they detect something harmful, like intense heat, pressure, or certain chemicals, bam! They fire off an urgent electrical signal straight to your brain, basically screaming, "Hey, damage detected right here!"
Okay, so if our skin is just lined with these little alarm bells, what happens when you actually burn it? Well, this is where things get interesting. This is where that signal can get completely, totally cut off.
So, let's just walk through the different stages of a burn. First, you've got your first-degree burn. Think of a mild sunburn. All that's really happening is that those nerve endings are getting irritated. Annoying, but not catastrophic. Then you have a second-degree burn. Now this is way worse. It blisters, it damages deeper, and it actually exposes the nerves, making them scream in agony. But then there's the third-degree burn. This one goes so deep that it just annihilates everything in its path. All the layers of skin, the tissue, and, this is the most important part, the nerve endings themselves.
And check this out. This table lays it out perfectly. Just look at the relationship between the nerve status and the pain level. As the damage goes from second degree to third degree, the pain doesn't just level off or get a little worse, it completely drops off a cliff. It goes from extreme all the way down to painless. And why? It's because the actual sensors, the little tripwires that are supposed to report the injury, have been totally incinerated.
And that right there is the answer to our paradox. The signal simply can't get through if the transmitter has been completely destroyed. Your brain gets absolutely no information from the site of the worst damage because the biological hardware, the wiring, that's supposed to send that message is just gone.
Okay, so with that modern medical understanding firmly in place, we're about to take a really sharp turn. We're going to look at a source that, on the surface, seems completely unrelated, but what's so wild is that it appears to describe this exact biological mechanism with startling precision.
And when I say sharp turn, I mean it. We're going back in time, about 1400 years, long before anyone knew anything about nerve endings or dermatology. The source we're looking at is the Quran, and specifically a passage that's describing a scene of punishment in the afterlife.
Now, I want you to pay really close attention to the specific wording here. This isn't just some vague, general statement about eternal punishment. It's describing a very specific process. It says that once the skin is destroyed, something has to be done in order for the punishment to be felt again.
And this right here brings us to the absolute core of the matter, the logic that's embedded inside this verse. It's not just a description, it's making a very specific claim about cause and effect.
You see, the text isn't just describing a random event. It's describing a cause and effect mechanism. It's laying out a problem and its solution. The problem? Once the skin is roasted through, the ability to feel or taste the punishment is lost. The solution? You have to replace the skin.
And this really breaks down that logic perfectly. The whole thing is structured almost like a scientific formula. You have the condition. The skins are roasted through. The clear implication of that is that the tasting of punishment would stop. So what's the solution? Replace them with other skins. And what's the reason? So that they may taste the punishment. That little phrase, "so that," is absolutely critical. It's the hinge that establishes a direct causal link.
So the big takeaway here, the crucial point, is that this 7th century text explicitly links the sensation of pain directly to the skin. Not the flesh in general, not the soul, but specifically the skin. The verse is saying, if the skin is gone, the feeling is gone.
And this is what makes it so remarkable. Because you have to remember, at the time this was written, the common understanding of pain was nowhere near this specific. Pain was usually seen as this spiritual thing or a holistic affliction, something that happened to your soul or your life force, your entire being. To so precisely pinpoint the skin as the necessary component for feeling this kind of pain, well, that's a medically precise detail that science would only confirm many, many centuries later.
So, what do we do with this? What are we supposed to make of it? There are basically two main ways people interpret this surprising alignment between an ancient religious text and modern biology.
All right, let's look at the two competing views. First, you've got the skeptic's perspective. From this angle, this is all just powerful, graphic imagery. Replacing the skin isn't a medical statement, it's a metaphor for endless punishment. It's all about the duration of hell, not the anatomy of nerves. But then you have the counterargument. This view focuses intensely on that causal link, so that. It argues that this isn't just about duration, it's about a specific mechanism. It's a claim that to restore the pain, you absolutely must restore the skin, which, as we've seen, is a medically precise fact.
And this, right here, illustrates the central question perfectly. On one side, we have a hard medical fact. No skin means no pain from a third-degree burn. And on the other, we have an ancient verse that appears to operate on that very same principle. So it forces you to ask this fascinating question. Is this just a powerful metaphor, a lucky poetic choice, or is it something more?
And that's the question we're left with to ponder. Is it just a chilling coincidence, or could it be an ancient anatomical insight, hidden away in a text that's over 1,400 years old? I'll leave that for you to decide.